Wine grapes have been part of the Lake County landscape for nearly 150 years. They are woven into the soul of this community. They attract a spirited kind of agricultural entrepreneur and hold the key to the region's future. This is the story of one of the fastest-growing wine regions in California, of the dreams and challenges driving its people, and the unique land that makes it all possible. The year was 1872, and Californians were on the move. Settlers were pushing west from the Sacramento Valley and north from San Francisco. Some came to Lake County to improve their health, others in search of opportunity.
The history of California winemaking has been one of pioneering. I think whether it was the Spanish missionaries who came up here, of course they were making Sacramento wine, but then all of the generations that have come here, whether it was the Italians or in this region, for example, we had a number of Germans and Swiss, they came and they brought their traditions with them.
Lake County's first grape growers settled near the town of Lower Lake. In 1890, Louis Kugelman built the county's first winery on a ranch just outside the town. It had a 20,000-gallon capacity.
When I was 17 years old, I took over my father's job of driving 2 horses and a heavy spring wagon with 100 gallons of wine out to the Quicksilver mines. We got 40 cents a gallon for it. Can you imagine? Al Kugelman.
Lake County's wine industry was gaining traction. In 1887, British beauty Lily Langtry took up residence at the Gwenock Stock Ranch in Coyote Valley as part of a plan to secure a divorce. With the help of a French Bordeaux expert, she planted grapes and then produced bottles of wine with her picture on the label. Langtry Estates, a pioneer in wine industry marketing, is the only one of Lake County's early vineyard operations still in business. Lily Langtry brought a sense of style to the local wine industry and attracted a new kind of person to it. T.H. Buckingham, the successful San Francisco shoe manufacturer, planted 40 acres of grapes on the peninsula that now bears his name. Near the town of Upper Lake, a New York lawyer named Serenus Hastings, who would eventually give his name to the Hastings School of Law, tried his hand at the wine business. He planted 60 acres of Zinfandel and built a winery which at its peak produced 150,000 gallons a year. As the new century approached, wine production was on the upswing, and Lake County had well-heeled customers ready to appreciate it. They traveled from vineyard to vineyard by boat, and their carriages were seen on the streets of Lakeport, but success would have to wait. Under growing pressure from the temperance movement, local vineyards and wineries began to struggle. They tried the export business, using horse teams to haul their wine over Mount St. Helena, but with a wholesale price as low as 10 cents a gallon, the operation never made sense. By the time Prohibition became law, Lake County vineyard owners were already plowing under their grapes and replacing them with walnuts and pears. For all intents and purposes, the Lake County wine industry was gone, but a body of knowledge would remain, and this information about the land, the grapes, and the wine would form the foundation of an extraordinary revival.
We are basically building ourselves on top of vineyard sites and the winemaking experiences that probably go back 100 years or more.
From the beginning, California grape growers have been searching for new places to spread their wings. So it's no wonder that some of the state's most respected and adventurous growers were thrilled when they rediscovered Lake County.
The backbone of great Cabernets runs up and down this ridge. It separates Napa and Sonoma, runs north from here all the way up into the coastal range. It's higher. We call it the Alta Mayacamas. It's the highest part of the range, and they're crazy, unique, great soils up here.
There are no soils that I've ever seen anywhere in California that have the rocky volcanics that we've seen with the red clay loam soils we have here. For myself, with my winemaking experience down in Napa, down there, the thing is I knew that the potential here was pretty incredible.
Other parts of the world, like in Spain and Italy, they find vineyards that have been planted for 200-300 years and replant them, resuscitate them, and find these great components out of them. Here, we're finding, enormous amount of acreage all throughout Northern California, and it's exciting to find places that make great wine.
On the west side of Mount Canocti, Beckstoffer Vineyards is planting Crimson Ridge, a new location with great promise.
In Crimson Ridge, we have different types of soil, bigger rocks, and we have an undulating situation, so you get different aspects, different sun exposures.
Ya está blandito.
What we're looking for is those special spots where we can produce those vineyard-designated wines that are truly can compete with anybody in the world. And Crimson Ridge might just be one of those places.
Most Lake County vineyards are planted above 1,500 feet, so the vines get more ultraviolet light. The soils here are newer, and there are huge temperature swings, and you taste it in the wines.
The main characteristic is just a sort of intensity of fruit, an intensity of the wine. Great color, structure, kind of a intensity of impact and flavor because we are in the mountains. You have thicker skins because of ultraviolet light. You have limited yields because of the soils and climate. So that's a big characteristic of all of our wines up here, whether they be whites or reds.
Here in the mountains of Northern California, in a unique region, a new breed of agricultural entrepreneur finds the challenge of creating big, bold, high-intensity wines irresistible.
Many of them come with a lot of experience, and they see the potential up here. And frankly, it's an exciting challenge to find something new.
You got room to cultivate what you like. It offers an opportunity to kind of come in when we are just kind of getting things started here in the vineyards and the winery industry.
Every person that I know of loves the challenge. We like to win, and just being second place isn't good enough.
There aren't that many great new wine regions out there. They're hard to develop, hard to find, but when you do, you're pretty happy you were there.
Lake County grape growers have knowledge and experience, but more than that, they have an ethic, a reverence for the land, and a commitment to sustainable farming.
On this ranch here, we have been sustainable from day one. We are organic. We do use the sheep in the vineyard to do the weed eating and fertilization and mowing. We do use our own compost from cow manure and grape skins. I have a strong passion for land and the protection of land. But basically we think this is such a beautiful piece of nature that we wanted to protect it. So we put a conservation easement on the ranch. So the way you see it today, it will stay that way. It will never be developed.
Education and public outreach are important parts of sustainable farming.
You go beyond here, it gets pretty wild and woolly. We've seen mountain lions out here, bobcats, coyotes, rattlesnakes.
Six Sigma tours are done for a couple different reasons. One is for people to fully appreciate the beauty of the ranch.
It's just huge place. Things get distorted because we have in Lake County, we have the cleanest air in the state.
We just really take care of the land because we're only here for a while and it needs to go on and on. And so we do a lot to inform people, to invite people out to see the ranch and experience the ranch. I absolutely love being out here.
Lake County growers maintain a critical balance in their vineyards. They use water and chemicals only when necessary.
The vine, out of balance, produces poor quality fruit. If we have too little fruit, if we're getting 1 ton to the acre, our grapes frequently are overripe, they're under-acidified. If we have excessive tonnage, if we're getting 10 tons to the acre, then our vines are low sugar, they're high acid, they're poor color. If we come into that 4 tons, we're in balance again, we're sustainably farming.
You can beef up a vineyard shortly, but when you use all the chemicals, it's like having a vineyard on steroids. And after a couple of years, it's burned out. So the natural way of farming is a long-term way of farming. That's the way you protect Mother Earth. And I think that's pretty important for customers to know that that's what we do.
We farm in such a way so that the future generations can farm in the same way. In other words, we can't spoil our water and spoil our air, so they have to do something different than we're doing. But we want them to be able to farm with the same water and air and other characteristics that we have today. I think that for a grape, a clean, unadulterated grape, grown in quality conditions, gives you a better product.
You know, the grapevine can be thought of sort of as our children. You would never want your children to be just given everything they want. You want to challenge them. And that's really the way they're going to rise to their highest expression, is when they're given a challenge. And most of the time, we're pretty well impressed with what they're capable of doing. So that's the challenge that we have with farming the wine grapes.
To be certified sustainable, a grower must commit to more than 220 separate practices, covering just about every aspect of vineyard life. Land, farming, social, and economic practices are all intertwined, with a strong sense of stewardship.
We are both stewards of the particular pieces of land that we farm. We are stewards of a tradition of winemaking that is thousands of years old. We are stewards of the well-being of our workers. So when we look at sustainability or stewardship, we think of all three of those things.
Good workers create good grapes. And to build a sustainable vineyard, the workforce must be stable and on the job year after year. That's what inspired Randy Craig of Bexdorfer Vineyards to create the wine industry's first Master Vigneron program.
Vigneron, in my mind, is the person that husbands the grapevine. And really, in the modern practice, what that means is the person that directs the crews that gets the job done.
These masters of the vineyard have been selected for their skill and dedication. They'll spend a year learning the industry's best practices and sharing their knowledge with each other. And when it's all over, they'll be certified Master Vignerons.
Other industries, other trades certainly have recognizable and generally agreed upon qualifications, apprentice and journeyman and whatnot. And I thought that was lacking in our trade, and I think it's every bit as defined a trade as you'll find.
On this day, the class will travel 60 miles, visiting 7 Lake County vineyards.
Today we're revisiting vineyards we saw in March. We're looking at overall growth and how that compares back to pruning practices as well as other cultural practices. Each vineyard is very different and unique, and I think that's one of the beauties of the day, is to see how different vineyards are. Going around and seeing them in a 4 to 5 hour period is really enlightening to us.
Along the way, vineyard owners join in to share their knowledge and experience.
We have highly qualified, very bright, very productive people working for us.
Oftentimes when you go into a vineyard, you'll see over 100 people out there working, and these supervisors have a key component to making a good bottom line for us.
The Master Vigneron program is taught in Spanish, making it more accessible and valuable to the majority of vineyard workers.
Cada ranchero tiene sus diferentes formas de trabajar la viña y aprendo más de gente que tiene más experiencia que yo acerca de esto.
Pues para mí es aprender más de los viñedos, es lo que quiero aprender más para así tener más relación con lo de la uva.
Ok, bueno, pues es importante el programa para aprender personalmente uno y poder ayudar más a que los dueños de los ranchos.
Well, you just try to be better grower to give the buyers better grapes, make better wine.
I want our employees always to, on a Sunday afternoon when they're on an outing with their family and they happen to drive by, I want the kids to always look and point and say, that's where my dad works. That's where my mom works. And I want them to feel proud about it. These are the people. These are the people that make our business work.
Soon, other workers in Lake County will become Master Vignerons, and the program will be offered to grape-growing regions all over the world to help them add this human dimension to their plans for sustainability. The decisions that Lake County grape growers make today about their workers, their vines, and their land will echo through these mountains for years to come.
The land with the greatest promise for Cabernet Sauvignon in the North Coast is Lake County. I think that promise is now being realized. Like most things where you grow great grapes, the sum is more than the total of the parts.
Great wine regions are not just great because they have good soil or good climate or something unique like elevation or ocean fogs, but in fact they have a culture of people who know what they're doing, they share their information, and they essentially push each other to make a great wine region.
When we put the grapevine into the natural environment and allow the natural environment to challenge the vine, I think the vine produces a more interesting fruit.
Mountain fruit has a sort of a wildness to it. The French call this garrigue, but this is when you pick up the scents and the smells of all of these native vegetation that we have around our vineyards. Manzanita, live oak, pine, etc. They are nuances that people find intriguing and make wine delicious.
We're looking for full flavors. We're looking for great color, beautiful acidity. The wines are so much better now than they were even 5 and 10 years ago. I think we're improving across the board.
As these vineyards get older and fruit quality is increased yearly just by the age of the vine, I believe that we will be the greatest $20 to $30 bottle of wine that you could get made out of California.
Lake County has a combination of soils, climate, elevation, the people now to just create really unique, compelling wines. I think we're sometimes matched with the type of pioneering winemakers. I think that we also bring pioneering consumers, people who are looking for something that is different, looking for fruit and wine that's just fun to drink, that's exciting. But I think we're right now creating really a legacy of